Yeah, we've already saved the princess. We've already got the Staff of Rain. All we need to do is collect the rest of Erdrick's gear and get the Sunstone. The Sunstone plus the Staff of Rain make the Rainbow Bridge that we need to get to the final dungeon. And Erdrick's gear makes it to where we can survive. And, yeah. Then we just gotta actually beat the game. Erdrick's sword is actually in the final dungeon. But his armor is in this town that we're circling right now. But we're not really strong enough to beat the boss that's guarding the armor. Not yet. I'm gonna want to get the flame sword first. And I probably want to get up to like level 18 or 20 before I try and fight him. Yeah, the rough thing is, so we have 9,000 gold right now. We need like maybe like 10,000 gold to get the flame sword, and maybe like another 12 to 15,000 to buy the shield upgrade. I don't know the exact numbers, but so we're looking at like 20,000 gold that we want to save up before we head to Cantlin and try and buy the sword and the shield. But if we die, we lose like half our money. Thankfully, these gold golems give a lot of money. Isn't that your armor? Why don't you have to buy it? Well, the armor that's in this town you don't have to buy. It's guarded by a boss. This isn't actually a town. This is kind of like a one-screen dungeon. It's a destroyed town. And Erdrick's armor's there, but it's guarded. We've actually bought the last suit of armor we're going to buy. We have the magic armor right now, which heals us as we walk around. The only armor that's better than that, I think, is Erdrick's armor, which is in this town. As far as our weapon, the flame sword's better than this, and Erdrick's sword's even better than that, but Erdrick's sword's in the final dungeon. Flame sword we're going to go buy soonish. There's a silver shield that we can buy. We're gonna work on that, and yeah, that's about it. I mean, there's not much left to the game. It's just we got to take the time to put in the work to get the XP and the money that we need to finish it. So that's what we're doing. And every time we get a level, it gets a little bit easier and a little bit faster. We tried to make the run out to Cantlin a little while ago before you showed up, Canamitis. And I got like over halfway there and we ran into a dragon that just like stomped us into the ground. And I couldn't even run away from it. So I figured we needed a couple more levels before we tried to make that run again. Because that dragon was pretty strong. I mean, we could get lucky and just not run into the dragon, but every time that dragon kills us, we lose half our money, and we need tens of thousands of gold to buy the things that we want to buy when we get there, so we can't be dying. So I think right now my plan is to wait until I have enough money from grinding right here, and once I've gotten like 20,000 gold or so from grinding right here, we're gonna save the game, and we're gonna make that run to Cantlin again. And hopefully by then we'll have like one more level or two, so it should be safe. We need 3,700 XP for the next level. So says Princess Ciri. Anyways, since there's not much left of this game, we were talking about Final Fantasy, the later Dragon Quests, and Persona, like all the games we're playing on the stream right now, and how they sort of compare to each other. And I was specifically thinking about like in-game content, because like I was saying, like the Dragon Quest games I don't know as well as the Final Fantasy ones, so and the Shin Megami Tensei games I know even less. So like Shin Megami Tensei games, for the most part, we're flying blind. So if there's optional content, I may just miss it. But when we get to the Final Fantasies, I know them pretty well. So I feel like we'll be able to hit up most of the side stuff in the Final Fantasy games. And I think that'll be fun. I'll try and do sort of a completionist run of those ones. Where we do all the optional dungeons, get all the summons, get the best equipment, you know, really try and milk every little bit of the game there, right? I don't know the right words. And, you know, maybe along the way we'll pick up some more viewers that know more about Dragon Quest and Shin Megami and can help me out when it comes to finding things that we might be missing in those ones. Alright, so there you go. So you know Shin Megami. So maybe you could help with the Megaten games. Because I know Final Fantasy pretty well, but for the Megaten games, for the most part, I'm flying blind. Like, I've beaten Persona 3, 4, and 5. I've played a lot of Nocturne, but like I haven't really beaten most of the other Megaten games. I've beaten Digital Devil Saga 1. Yeah, I mean, those are going to be mostly new experiences for me. And they're also going to be the hardest games of the bunch, so it should be interesting. Like, out of the three, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and Shin Megami Tensei, it's really not even a competition for which one's the hardest. Like, it's like we all just go, okay, Shin Megami's the hardest, let's just agree. Like, Final Fantasies are generally very easy. Dragon Quest really aren't that hard either. With Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy, it basically just boils down to, do you have the right equipment and are you high enough level? And if you know the game well enough, what the right equipment is and what level you have to be could be much lower than if you don't know the game that well, right? Like if you're playing Final Fantasy IX, you can beat all the bosses basically without even leveling if you know the right strategies for it. Because, like, a lot of the bosses have weaknesses or ways to exploit them, or you can get the right abilities to make it to where, like, one of your characters is, like, super tanky, doesn't take any damage, and he takes all the hits for people so that the other characters aren't getting hit. You can do things like that in Final Fantasy V, too, with the Knight class's cover ability. There's all kinds of different things you can do, but, so, like, strategy can help you make the game even easier, but, like, you don't even need strategy for Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. I mean, that's true of every JRPG, but, like, I feel like the Megaten games are generally harder, and it would be much harder to grind through than to actually, like, exploit. Like, Megaten games are more about, like, using the mechanics of the game, exploiting weaknesses and stuff like that, whereas Final Fantasy is, like, use whatever ability you want, man. They're all good, and you know, this one does a lot of damage. Use that one. You know, it's not that enemies don't have weaknesses, but it's kind of like Persona 1. Persona 1, you have weaknesses, but it just means you take a little bit of extra damage. It doesn't mean the enemy's going to get a whole nother frickin' turn, you know? So it's not as big of a deal. Like, when you're dealing with the mechanics of, like, most of the Shin Megami games where, like, hitting a weakness gives you an extra turn, or missing could make you lose turns, like, that drastically changes the tactics and strategy that you need to use to approach situations. You got the bad ending in Shin Megami Tensei 4 today? Didn't realize it at the time? I feel like in the mainline Shin Megami games, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't actually beaten them myself. I have some friends that have beaten them, and I've read about them. So help me out here. There's generally, like, multiple endings, right? And they generally, it's like, there's like a law ending, a chaos ending, and a neutral ending, right? And, like, what is it? It's like law, you side with Yahweh, and establish order in the universe, and everyone has to worship him or whatever. Chaos, you like side with Lucifer or whatever and let everyone do whatever the hell they want, and maybe everyone's gonna die. I don't know, whatever. And then neutral, I'm a little more gray on, but isn't neutral supposed to be like the canon ending a lot of times? Like, which one is the bad ending? And I guess specific to SMT4, because that's the one you're talking about. 4 has an additional ending. So is there like an additional this is the bad ending in 4? Like put the Law Order Chaos thing aside. What's the bad ending, right? Kind of a reset. Oh, okay. Interesting. That's a cool thing they do in some RPGs, and SMT is pretty good about that. They usually have multiple endings. Even the Persona games a lot of times will have multiple endings, although in Persona games, really, I feel like there's only one ending, and then there's like you could end early and not really get the real ending. Like, I feel like, yeah, that's Persona games. It's like there's endings and then there's the true ending, right? Where like if you do everything right, you can see the actual ending of the game, and if you mess up, maybe the game will end early. But Shin Megami Tensei mainline games, it's like literally like multiple final endings, right? Closer to like, I don't know, a good example. I mean, Chrono Trigger has lots of endings, but Chrono Trigger's endings are special too. Chrono Trigger, it's almost like, depending on what era or what part of the game you decide to go fight Lavos, it changes the ending. But I like RPGs that have multiple endings. You know, it gives you the replay value and something to work towards. And it's like, I'm working towards this ending. I don't feel like Persona really counts towards that, because it's like, why would you ever work towards anything but the true ending, right? Like, who wants to get the, well, this is good enough, I don't want to see the rest of the game ending, right? And Persona's usually pretty obvious about it if you're messing that up too. They're like, are you sure you want to do this? Do you want to just accept this, or do you want to know the truth? Like, I don't feel like you have to go out of your way that far to get the true ending in Persona games. I'll be interested to see what they did for Persona 4 Golden and Persona 5 Royal, because I think in both of those instances they like added another dungeon to the game, didn't they? So like they've extended it a little bit. We're getting close to the money we need. I think we've kind of gotten to the point where we don't have to stop and heal. We're either not taking damage, or when we do take damage, it's low enough that our armor is just giving it back to us by walking around. Well, Final Fantasy tends to just have one ending, right? Sometimes they have in-game stuff you can do after the ending or before the ending or whenever you feel like it, but there's generally only one ending. There's one thing you can do that scrolls the credits, is beating the last boss, and there's not usually like there's no bad version of it in Final Fantasy that I can really think of. That's pretty much the same for Dragon Quest, right? I think Dragon Quest, you generally just have one ending. The story may continue in some other direction afterwards for some kind of like post-game thing, but there's just one ending to the main story. So I think experimenting with multiple endings is going to be something that, for now, we're going to be confining to our Shin Megami Tensei days. I wonder if Persona 1 has multiple endings. I don't know. Maybe Persona 1 has some kind of branching point at some point. We're playing it blind, so I really don't know. We'll get whatever ending we get, and if there's a better one, we'll consider playing it again, depending on how long it is. I don't think Persona 1, like, the older Personas don't really have New Game Plus like the newer ones do they? Because that would make it a lot easier to play through a second time if we needed to. But I don't think they have it. Of course, they also don't have social links, so if they did have New Game Plus, you would fly through it super fast. You'd just be higher level and you don't have to do the social links again anyway, so. I feel like when I'm playing Persona 3, 4, or 5, the games are really long, but a lot of that's just like doing the social links or doing the actual story. The dungeons don't... I mean, you spend a lot of time doing the dungeons. I'm not saying the dungeons are short or that they don't spend a lot of time. I mean, but like things like this kind of grinding right here, where I'm literally just walking in a circle to get XP, this feels like it takes a long time. But the kind of grinding when you're like running through a dungeon and finding chests and like exploring different possible routes through it because there's like dead ends and branching paths and maybe story is advancing as you're going through it, that kind of thing doesn't feel like it takes a long time, even if it takes longer, because like interesting things are happening. It's when a game makes you just grind by walking in a circle that it starts to feel long and tedious. So I don't usually feel like that in a Persona game. I think that's kind of the measure for me for whether a game has too much grinding or not. Like, I don't mind grinding because I got to a hard boss and I need to like power up a little bit because I don't know a good strategy to beat him, or if I want to get a certain persona or something, so I'm going to go up there and grind one more level and maybe make sure, like, farm around for a specific spell card I want or whatever so that I can make the persona I want. That doesn't feel too grindy to me, but like this kind of thing like I'm doing in Dragon Quest right now, where literally all I am doing is trying to get XP and money. There's no thought to it. There's no strategy to it. I'm literally just spending time hitting the A button for a while. This I wish wasn't here, right? In the case of Dragon Quest 1, that's not really fair, because one, it was like one of the first games of its kind, and so this kind of thing was almost novel-ish, right? And two, I mean, that's basically the whole game. It's not like you can take it out. We talked about that earlier. So I forgive old school like NES games for stuff like that. In newer games though, you don't want to see it, you know? Like nowadays, if I'm playing a game and it's a new game, I really wouldn't want this to ever happen. Like, there's enough mechanics and there's enough things going on and there's enough side content to keep me busy doing other things while the grinding just sort of happens naturally, right? Like, take Final Fantasy VII Remake, for instance. I never stopped to grind in that game, but I did do all the side quests. And if you think about it, side quests are like a way for an RPG to convince you to go walk in a circle and grind without realizing you're walking in a circle and grinding, right? Like a side quest will be like, okay, so you're here right now, and I want you to walk all the way over there, talk to that person, fight this one enemy, and then walk all the way back here. Really what they're saying is, okay, dude, you need to grind for a little bit, but I don't want you to think that you're grinding. So could you just walk over there and back, and it'll just kind of happen, you know? Like, that's how they hide the grinding from you. And I appreciate that, because I don't feel like I'm grinding when I'm doing a side quest, even though that's really all you're doing. Usually all you're doing is grinding plus an item at the end or something, you know? I appreciate it even more when the side quests don't feel like side quests. I'm trying to think of a good example of that. And this isn't a JRPG or even a turn-based game, but like take The Witcher 3 for instance. In The Witcher 3, the side quests were only side quests because they didn't have anything to do with the main story. They were still fleshed out experiences with their own stories, their own characters, their own like branches, like they didn't feel like side quests because they weren't side quests in the sense that they were secondary filler quests. They were side quests in the sense that they didn't really have to do with the main story. You know? And a lot of times even they had ties to the main story. So like that is side quests done really right. I feel like the filler side quests that are just there to pass your time and make you grind without realizing you're grinding, they're like what I call grinding plus. I'm grinding and it doesn't feel as bad. But if you can take the time to make a real true side quest that actually has its own story, dialogue, and things going on, like at that point it's not grinding plus. At that point it is like an extension of the story, and you have accomplished the grinding without it even being filler. And that is what they really should aim for. And that's what I expect from modern games. But we don't expect it from old games, right? Let's see. Saw someone speedrunning Persona the other day. Persona 4? Were they doing social links at all? Or did they just, like, skip every night, basically, and just grind up what they needed? Because... Or did they speed through the social links to get those extra free XP when they did Personas? Like, which is faster? I would think it might be faster to just skip the social links altogether. Or was it a New Game Plus run? Like, is it, when they're speedrunning Persona, do they do a fresh game to speedrun it? Or do they speedrun with New Game Plus? I'd imagine it would have to be a fresh game, because if you speedrun with New Game Plus, you could just grab a really strong Persona and be done. The average run speedrunning Persona 4 is 14 hours. Wow. I wouldn't even consider speedrunning a game like Persona. I know people speedrun Final Fantasy games too. Like, if a speedrun takes more than like 3 or 4 hours, I almost feel like it's not really a speedrun anymore, you know? It's like, okay, it's still a speedrun, and it's still impressive. But like, if I were going to actually do a speedrun, it would have to be like shorter, right? So you could just do it over and over and over again. I don't know. People do it, and it's still impressive. Speaking of speedruns though, I find it a lot more impressive when someone does a speedrun and it doesn't include like warping, glitches, unintended crap. Like I like speedruns where it's like the person's playing the game like a regular person, just really well and fast. Not where the person's like, well, I pull out my bottle, swipe it this way, zoom across the water at lightning speed, and then teleport through this wall, skipping 3 dungeons for Zelda. You know, it's like, okay, I mean, yes, you will get to the credit scene faster, but like, you're not even playing the game anymore. You're doing some other thing. You know, like, my favorite speedruns are the ones where they're literally playing the game like you would normally play the game. They're just doing it really, really well and fast. And I feel like some games don't have that category, you know, because like they found so many ways to break the game that that's just like not even in the ballpark of being the fast run anymore. Yeah, 100% speedruns with no glitches. The 100% part depends on the game and what 100% means. Like if it's like a Zelda game, all dungeons, no glitches, that's my jam, right? But like then a game like Persona or any of the Final Fantasy, that's another thing. So kind of back to my same point of like when I watch a speedrun, I kind of want to see people playing it normally but faster. Like if you're speedrunning a JRPG, then you're skipping every single line of dialogue. So you're boiling it down to just the combat, basically. And you're showing how to beat the combat really fast, and you're flying through the prompts as fast as possible. So, like, we can barely even read it. And I don't know. I think it's impressive. I don't know how much fun it is for me to watch it. Like a game like Metroid or Zelda or something, it doesn't have all those text prompts and stuff. Like, it has a couple little text things, but they're not important. You know, they say like, "Ooh, you picked up the lantern," or "Please go save Zelda," or "Ganon has me in the castle." It's like, okay, we know all that. And so, like, the gameplay is 99% of the game, and that's the part you're doing fast. But a game like, say, like, someone's doing a speedrun of Final Fantasy IX because they want to get Excalibur, right? I'm not even talking like a speedrun. I'm saying if you just do like the normal person speedrun trying to get to Excalibur 2 before it disappears. Which, if you don't know, in Final Fantasy IX, there is a sword that you can get, but you have to get to like the very end of the game within 12 hours, or you can't get it. So there's like an in-game built-in speedrun thing, right? It's not the real speedrun. The real speedrun is much, much faster than that. But for a normal person who's not a speedrunner to accomplish that, you basically need to just spam through all the dialogue, right? And it's like, I feel like I'm not enjoying Final Fantasy anymore at this point. I'm not reading any of the text. I'm not seeing any of the story. If you've beaten it a lot of times, it's a fun challenge. In the original Final Fantasy IX, you can't even skip the cutscenes. So, like, to try and do this, and there's a lot of cutscenes. Like, there's a lot of minutes of cutscenes in Final Fantasy IX. So, people trying to do this challenge to get Excalibur and beat the game in 12 hours, if they were having trouble with that, which nowadays there are guides that'll show you how to do it in like 9 hours without breaking much of a sweat. But if you were having trouble, what people would be doing is like, they can't skip the cutscenes, but they figured out that if they like pop open the tray on the PlayStation and then close it back up, it somehow like makes it skip the cutscene because it like stops the disc when it's trying to play it, and then when it starts back up, it just doesn't try again, so it just skips over it. And I'm like, now you're missing the cutscenes. Like, is it impressive? Yes, but once again, like, we're missing like a lot of the goodness of the game, right? So I like speedruns that like still hold on to the core of the gameplay. I think that's where it comes down to. I don't even have that much of an issue with glitches. I like the speedrun when it still has the normal gameplay in it, just faster, right? And I feel like with a JRPG like a Final Fantasy game, the text and the story is part of the normal gameplay, so it makes it hard for me to watch a speedrun of it. But that's just me. I definitely see how they're impressive, and you know, more power to them for speedrunning it. Yeah, that's another thing that's nice. Like, first of all, I love GDQ. I think most people like GDQ, at least like, you know, I love the community aspect of the speedruns that they do there. And you have like the crowd and the commentators, and also importantly, someone there to explain all the stuff that you're skipping or all the tricks that they're doing. That really helps a lot as far as the enjoyment factor, right? All right, we hit level 17. I think it's time to try and make this run. What do you guys think? Man, though, if we run into that dragon, well, we're gonna try it.